All right. And we are live on Facebook, Leah.
Yay!
Yes. Here it is, Wednesday. Oh, little echo there. We got that corrected.
Yes, sorry about that.
That's all right. Okay. So we had a great conversation last week, and I think we'll have a great conversation this week. So we are just going to check and see if anybody has come on yet.
I don't see anyone yet, but
Okay.
I think that we can start by talking about, I guess, something general. Maybe the difference. Well, should we wait and see if Kathy? I know Kathy had a really great question. Maybe there's another question we want to address first.
She did have a great question.
Do we want to wait until she gets on, possibly?
She may not make it tonight, she said. She's either going to be late or she may not make it at all. So we could wait on hers and just.
Yeah, let's wait on hers.
Yeah.
So let's go to another question, because I know you have quite a few that came in. So
yes, we did. So we also had a question about lineage.
Oh,
what is it? What does it mean? How important is it? And what about the let animals lead method? So I think that's a great question on the lineage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a tricky one, because when it comes to animal Reiki, it's Kathleen and then all of us teachers, right? So there's 1 degree of separation from Kathleen. Now, Kathleen's lineage and a lot of ours. Oh, Darlene's. Hi, Darlene. So Kathleen's lineage. In fact, I think Darlene had this question. So Darlene, we just started talking about lineage, and so what I'm saying is that for the Let Animals Lead method of animal Reiki, the lineage starts with Kathleen. Now, that's not to say it isn't based off of other lineages. So we've studied with Inamoto, we've studied with Franz Dine, Kathleen has studied with the Reiki Alliance, and she has studied with, oh gosh, who was the other one? Do you remember, Jamie? There's the Reiki Alliance and there's one more.
I don't remember.
I don't think it was Takata's lineage, but so she, God, was it Yamaguchi? I can't remember. But anyway, when it comes to animal Reiki, I think lineage is more important that it starts with Kathleen, because what we are doing is not human Reiki adapted for animals. This is a special form that was taken, just like Asui did. Asui took many different aspects from many different practices, right? So even the precepts are not Reiki. They came from a book from 1916, wasn't it,
Jamie? I think, yes, 1960.
From Dr. Suzuki Brian, or and so that was called the Path to Soundness. So Asui did the same thing. He took little things. So what Kathleen did was she took the meditation of Reiki, the precepts, but the hands-on position are only for us. The attunements are never for animals. It's only for the students that you're attuning for level 1, 2, or 3. And the intention is completely different, right? With humans, everything's outward. With animals, everything is inward for us. So the lineage, I think it's really important to honor that our lineage starts with Kathleen. And so I'd really like to open that back to you, Jamie, and get your opinion on that.
Yes, absolutely. You will always hear that a true Reiki always goes back to Mikao Usui. And that is true, because there are different systems out there, that have originated elsewhere. But when it comes to the animals, it is so different in our technique and approach that is effective with animals. The human method is not as effective with animals at all as the Let Animals Lead method. So yes, as far as just general Reiki, we could look at who Kathleen studied with, or who Leah has studied with, or who I have studied with for human Reiki, and trace it back to Mikao Usui. And as far as animal Reiki goes, it definitely goes back to Kathleen, and that's where it starts. So, I know Leah and I have both studied from Kathleen, so that would be the lineage for our students. It would be us and Kathleen. And so it is tricky. It's a little confusing. So I think the important thing is the intention, and just making sure that when you're a student, that you're able to ask questions, you're able to feel confident that your teacher understands the proper way to approach animals. I think, if you're looking for animal Reiki, ask lots of questions of the person who's teaching it. Because that's important. Do they put hands on the animal? Do they meditate? Do they meditate daily? What is their own personal practice? What's their view on how to offer Reiki to animals? You want to find all that out.
And I think that really one of the important aspects of this for me is that we have to ask ourselves, why is lineage so important? What are we trying to tie ourselves back to? And I think for humans, it's a very egotistical thing. Oh, I'm only 6 degrees from a sui. I'm only 4 degrees from a sui. Whereas when we talk about animal Reiki, this is why for a long time, what was lineage? I mean, lineage only mattered that we were honoring a sui's original teachings, not the game of telephone that was played from each teacher they're on, because every teacher, and you and I is the same, you put your own spin on it, right? And you add what you think needs to be added. So for Mrs. Takata, she added hand positions, and Asui didn't use hand positions. And Dr. Hayashi, who wasn't a doctor, we have to say that, we have to make that very clear. Dr. Hayashi was not a doctor. And this is proven because to be a doctor, he would have had to go to many years of school and done many years of like residency. And instead he didn't. So we just have to make a note of that things came in afterwards. And then Dr. Hayashi created hand positions and things for the Navy, right? Because that's who he taught Reiki to. And they needed that for self-healing and for healing of each other. So when we talk about animals, like you said, like that lineage is for people, and it's completely different intent, completely different system, completely different practice. So I feel like when these questions of lineage come up for animal Reiki, it's like Kathleen Prasad, and that's it. And a sui, right? I would be like a sui and Kathleen Prasad.
Yes. And you might even say it's just the animals in a sense, right?
Very good. Oh my God, I love that.
Good. Just skip Yusui and Kathleen and say, starts with the animals.
And you know what? And I'll tell you why I love that so much. Thank you. God, Jamie. Bravo. I'm going to give you props for that one.
The same way as you. And then it's like, wait a minute, it was the animals.
Well, and then we talk about Dakota, right? Like if you want to talk about a lineage, the lineage starts with Dakota. And that's actually how we should do our family tree, because Dakota is the one that brought Kathleen to Reiki. And I think that's so beautiful. And if we're going to start with anyone on our family tree, on our lineage, it would be Dakota and Kathleen. And we're all descendants of Dakota, right? We're all on Dakota. And I think that's really beautiful. I can't wait to share this with Kathleen, Jamie. This is so amazing.
I think that's our lineage. It just kind of dawned on me as we're talking. So yeah, I like that lineage.
Me too. Me too. I like that lineage too. So yeah, so that's the lineage question. I think that's it. I don't know if anyone wants to comment.
Yeah, if you have comments or questions, just put them in the chat, and
we'll very quiet today.
We're kind of we're watching. It just takes a minute to get here. So we do have some exciting news coming up this weekend. It's World Animal Reiki Day. And that is on the 5th, which is, what day is that? Is that Friday or the Saturday? It's Saturday, isn't it? Yes. And not only we are going to do a special live in honor of World Animal Reiki Day. And what's even cooler is I will be live in Las Vegas, but Leah is going to be at the Care Foundation in Florida. teaching a class with Nicholson.
Jack Nicholson.
Yeah.
He's into animal Reiki
there we
too.
go. Nicholas Pearson. I just kind of combined those names together. And she's going to take time out, and we're going to do a discussion about zoos and animals that are encaged, and offering Reiki and meditating with animals that are at zoos.
Mhm.
And we think that's going to be a great discussion. And I suspect that we might have a surprise guest. That's all I'm going to say. It might have 4 legs. It may have no legs. I really don't know. So I'm anxious to see too. So that's the teaser.
Thank you. There's a lot of pressure there. No, it's going to be so cool because I've been practicing with my tripod, because my tripod that I bought to do the filming for live, it can be a selfie stick. So I can go and show all of you the property, and you can take it all in and see the beautiful tigers and the snakes and the monkeys, and just you'll hopefully get the feel for how beautiful the place is and how lucky we are to be there.
Can't wait.
Yeah, and the animals are so happy. So it'll be a lot of fun. And we'll be sharing the World Animal Reiki prayer, which I think, Jamie, you're going to be reading that for all of us so we can do a meditation and a prayer. And that's such a beautiful prayer and so effective and powerful too. I'm so excited. One of the reasons I'm really excited to be with the Animals That Care is because in years past, and I know you can speak to this, Jamie, as well, that this day is a really magical day because the animals feel that it's for them and that we are taking time to really, truly see them, thank them, and honor them. And that's going to be really cool being at Care because they already get excited when we come for Reiki. So now when they know this is their special day, like a big birthday, right? It's going to be really exciting. And I know there's going to be some cool experiences.
And, I think some of it, because we're all energy, we're all connected. There's this web of life that everyone's connected to. We're all connected. And what's going to happen is all the Let Animal Lead teachers and practitioners on this day are going to be doing something. It may not be, at a animal sanctuary. It may just be one-on-one with an animal. It might be at a shelter. It might just be, anything. But everybody is going to be meditating in honor of the animals with the intent to hold space for them. And that's really powerful when you have all these people on the same day, holding space for the animals. They will sense that.
It's really powerful. I've had so many cool experiences. And Wanda just joined us. Hey, Wanda.
Hi, Wanda.
So, it's going to be a very special weekend, and I'm so excited for us to connect on Saturday. So that will be we're going to be going live at, I think it's 3:30
Eastern.
No, 3:30 Eastern.
And 12:30 Pacific time.
Yeah. And so for our European friends, they'll be able to join us, which will be really great.
Yes.
And for our West Coast friends, it won't be too awfully early.
Right. So
I wanted to do morning, but that we decided that was at 5 a.m. for you. So probably not a great idea.
That wasn't going to make it. We wouldn't want to be on Facebook at 5 a.m. I just put Sophie on there and let her, I could voice it from the back.
Oh my gosh, too fun. So I guess we should address Kathy's question now. So why don't you share what that is, and we can have a discussion.
So you just talk a little bit and let me pull this up real quick. So Kathy had 2 questions, and she said she might be late, but she wanted us to talk about conducting joint Reiki sessions with the animal and their human. She's wondering if we have any special tips, and also what we've observed personally is the benefit when humans and animals have joint sessions or meditate together on their own outside of an official Reiki session. So let's start with that one first.
You want to go ahead and start
Or do you want me to read the other one too? I can read the other one.
Oh, yeah.
So she's heard several times that the original Reiki was meditation, so no hand positions. And she was wondering if we could point her to a reference for this. Is it in Nicholas Pearson's book someplace? And also, did the original Reiki include attunements, or was it strictly meditation? So those are some great questions.
What was the first part of her question again about whether it was in the book? It wasn't the attunements. That was the second part.
No, that was the second part. The first part of that question, hand positions.
Oh,
she heard that there was no official hand position originally, and wondered if there was a place she could look that up.
So let's start with her first question. And if you want to start with that, I can pop in. And
yes. So she's asking about conducting Reiki sessions, animal Reiki sessions, basically with their humans, is what I gathered there, or with people in general, doing them together. And I tell people that I work with that really that's the only way to do it, because our animals reflect what's going on with us. They reflect what's going on in the house. And I really need the people that live there to be part of this process. So they can calm down as well. And I will tell you, this was several years ago. I was at an animal shelter. It was a no-kill shelter. And I'd been offering Reiki to all the animals. And then I was getting ready to leave, and the manager came up and she said, Jamie, would you just stay a little bit longer? My friend is here. Her dog has cancer and he's going in for surgery tomorrow. And would you offer some Reiki? I said, absolutely, I would. So we went outside in a big pen area, a big run. And it was just the dog and me and the mom and the manager. And the dog, I can't remember what type it was. It was a big dog. And it was just running as fast as it could, that fence line. And I knew there was no way I could hold space, but the dog was not going to accept it. I mean, it just was frantic and wild and running and running. And then the woman came up to me and she started talking, and she told me, this is the first dog I've ever owned, and I've never had a dog die, and I don't know what I'm going to do. I've never had a dog go through surgery. And I was just like this, because it was, whoa, this is a lot of energy here. And so finally I said, can I offer you Reiki? And she looked kind of funny because I'm supposed to be working with her dog, right? But she agreed. So we brought a chair in, and I just did a chair session with hand positions on her. Within 30 seconds of her sitting down and me beginning to offer the Reiki, the dog came over and laid down at her feet. And that's how I know that we have to work with the people, that the dogs live with as well.
Because we've had that experience that you go in and you see the dog is, anxious, but then you turn to the person and then it's like, oh, and what I talked to my class, this last class, that, imagine yourself, you feel on the outside you're calm, but inside you're just like racing. You're like the Tasmanian devil when you come in. You're just going, oh, hey, Susan, thanks so much for joining us. And thank you so much for, yes. So she said, absolutely, people need it too. Yeah. But, so your energy is just going zzz, and for the animals, they're so sensitive to any little shift in our energy. So when we're like this, they think, I got to be like this. They have to match it, right? That's why when we're calm, they match that calmness, which is a really big reason for offering Reiki to the person if they're open to it. Now, I've been in situations where the person was like, right, I don't want the Reiki. I didn't know this person. Some people feel really weird about being touched.
Yes.
So what I suggest in those situations is, it really helps the animal if we can just sit and calm ourselves. And then I, walk them through some breath, because when the breath slows, the mind slows, right? So just walk them through some breathing. You can do the Joshin Kokyo Ho. You can do the numbered breathing, breathe in, 1, 2, 3, 4, hold 1, 2, 3, 4, the square, whatever it is to help bring some peace to that chaotic situation. Now for you, it was great because you got to offer Reiki to the person, but if the person isn't open to it,
Yes.
then and then we have to also address when the person, for whatever reason, agrees to Reiki, but then wants nothing to do with it, right? So
Mhm.
there's those situations. So in those situations, those type of people usually will start doing dishes or start reading a magazine and flipping, and so it's really important to say, I understand that you don't want to be a part of this, but we really have to make it as peaceful as possible for your dog or your cat or your iguana, whatever the case may be, and just make it peaceful. So I think that that's really important, just to keep in mind that we always want to be flexible with our treatments, and if we can, keep the person in there, but if not,
And
just
and
make sure there's peace.
that's a great point, because I do that a lot, where I just guide them through some breathing and a meditation. And then I'll tell them, and, at that point, if your mind wanders, just sit quietly and think about how much you love your pet, and then I will let you know when I'm finished, and that type of thing. And the ones where I've been in, where the woman really wanted this, but the man, her husband wasn't as sold, and he was there. And you're right. It's about, okay, so there's some tension here. The animal will pick up on that. So we're going to go outside. It was a dog. This one happened to be a dog. So the dog and I are going to go outside, and you guys can wait in here, if that's more comfortable, because we just need to make sure that there's nothing to distract them. And that's important. So I think a lot of it comes down to just using your judgment on the situation. You have to be able to kind of tune in to the situation when you get there, and then, just decide what's going to be the best way to present to the animal, because that's really who it's about.
And which is why we have to really be in our practice, right? Because we can't take it personally when somebody doesn't want to participate. We have to know how to pivot. We have to know how to go, okay, to have a lot of tools in our toolbox, so that to always remember this is for the animal. And then, if you go into it with that understanding that, hey, this is for the animal, it makes it easier to then say, okay, well, you don't want to join in, no problem. We need to be really peaceful, and there needs to be an acceptance, at least at this session. And if that's not possible, like you said, then you go into another room, or you just do your best and you tell the animal, don't worry, it's okay, everybody's going to come around, this is just for you, right? I mean, that's your last resort. And it's not animal communication, it's just the energy of your words that are, it's peaceful, this is calm, everything's well, right? All is well, that all is well state of being.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
hopefully that helps.
I hope so. Yeah, I hope that answered the question. I think we've answered them.
Except for the second one now.
Okay, yeah. And that's about the hand positions with the traditional Reiki, which is the traditional Japanese Reiki. She heard it was meditation, and she's just wondering if you can point to the reference. And did the traditional Reiki include attunements, which means something you were attuned to this energy of Reiki, or was it strictly meditation?
So Nicholas's book covers that deeply. What we, thank you. Foundations of Reiki Ryoho. And it's an overview of the Shoden and Okuden, which is the beginning and intermediate teachings.
Yes.
So with Asui, what we know, right? Because when we studied, Jamie and I studied with Inamoto, a sensei Inamoto had done lots of research. I know that Nicholas has done lots of research. There's a lot of scholars there, and we only know certain things, but we do know that the hand positions for the body came after Asui. They came from Dr. Hayashi, who again wasn't a doctor, but created those for the Navy, because he taught people in the Navy Reiki so that they could help heal each other. And then Mrs. Takata further did the, because they wanted it to be more of a medical system as opposed to a spiritual system. So we have to recognize that Mrs. Takata brought it to the United States right after World War II, where things Japanese were not widely accepted. So there were the stories that Usui went to college here in the United States, that he was a professor, that he, many different things, that he was a martial artist expert, and all these things. And so when we studied with Sensei Inamoto, we learned a lot more of the truth. Franz Stine teaches a lot more of the truth, although even what Franz teaches isn't the full truth. Like there aren't three haras, but Franz teaches that there are three energy centers, and there is a hara, but there's not a middle hara and an upper hara. So we have to take these teachings and really kind of go with the people who are actually studying this as scholars, right? So that would be Nicholas Pearson, Sensei Inamoto. There's Petter, I think, is also, I can't remember. And then there's another scholar that's going to be coming out with a historical book of Inamoto, or of Usui soon. And it's Nicholas's colleague. And so there'll be another book. So it's just really important that you be careful on your sources. But there were no official hand positions other than the chair treatment, because Usui believed that if you healed the head, then the whole body would come. So in the chair treatment, the way we learned it, there are certain positions like the eyes, the sides of the head, the front and back of the head, the shoulders, and then the top of the head, right? And so that's it. And then as far as the attunements go, he didn't do the attunements that we know. That was Hayashi and Takata. The attunements he did was just basically being across from you, and your energy would change you. And that's what I know anyway. So I know, Jamie, like I want you to
know what was nice about studying with Inamoto. Of course, he was a Buddhist monk. He was born and raised in Japan. He was a Japanese man that was a Buddhist monk. And so he understood the culture. So when we went to class, and sometimes we had a little bit of communication trouble, but he was just such a joy. He was always laughing and fun, but he could explain why something, some of the stories we've been told in the history of Reiki, in the West, why they couldn't be true, because he could break it down with the writing and the kanji and say, no, this would be different if that was true. So he understood the culture so well that, it was just a privilege to sit in that classroom with him for those 3 or 4 days that we were there, and ask him anything, and what he told us as we teach, he said, please just teach what's been verified. That's what he asked of us. And if it's not verified, tell people, this hasn't been verified. And so that was very important to him, was to teach what has been verified.
Yeah, and I found that really interesting too, because a lot of what we had been taught wasn't verified, and sometimes it was just not true. Like, and he told us the reasons why that couldn't be true. And it was very basic, and it was like, oh, why didn't this come out? But I think, again, like, especially during Mrs. Takata's time, they had to get away from the whole Japanese culture.
Yes.
And that was a huge deal, right?
Yeah. And he even said that she was a master marketer, because she knew that at this time, there was war with Japan,
right,
and you couldn't bring anything over that that had Japanese terms or names. It wasn't going to be accepted by the people of the West. So she changed it so it would be accepted. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that's unusual, because even Usui would adjust his teachings for who he was teaching. So nobody got the exact same thing, because they weren't in the exact same place. He would adjust it. And so it's not like she was trying to pull one over on anybody. It's that she looked at it and went, I have to adjust it, because it won't be accepted. These people are not in the place where they can accept our traditional teachings.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I think that when we talk about attunements today, it's more the Hayashi Takata attunements. Whereas when you talk about attunements that are straight from a Sui, it's a whole body attunement. It's you sitting across from people, and it's your energy starts to change them. And I feel like with animals, we get constantly attuned because of that, right? You
Right.
sit in the presence with the animals, and they attune us, to a higher, energy that we're not used to. And so if we talk about attunements in animal Reiki, we can talk about the attunements the students get from the teacher. But as far as attunements from our masters, which are the animals, they offer that to us. And that's a really beautiful thing.
And it really is, and they've even, and I probably shouldn't even bring this up because I don't know if I remember enough of the details, but there is a professor in Arizona who did a study on coherence, heart coherence with people and horses. And basically what was found is it was many of them had Reiki training, so they were offering Reiki. They measured the coherence of the person and the coherence of the horse. And really what happened, it wasn't that these Reiki masters went in there and raised the coherence of the horse. In fact, it was the opposite. The horse raised the level, the people raised up to meet the level of the horse. So that's exactly right. They attune us all the time when you look at it that way.
I love that. I'm so glad you shared that, because that's a beautiful example of, here it is, a scientific study to try and make it seem like humans are helping this horse and the horses, no, they're elevating us, which we know to be true in this practice, which is why it's so important to honor that we cannot be taking human Reiki and trying to make it work with animals, that it has to be a respect of meeting the animals where they are and seeing them as a higher being.
Yes, absolutely, because they are, and they can take us there, if we listen.
So was there another part of her question after the attunements?
That was it. She had just asked about the hand positions and the attunement in that one. So that's all the questions that we had. So, but it's a great segue into what we wanted to discuss. Unless anybody has any questions, just pop them in. What we wanted to discuss, because I get a lot of questions, and I think Leah does too, from people that they go through the class and then they'll say, so can I offer Reiki to an iguana? It's like, yes, you can. And there's this misconception by many people, students, the general public, that Reiki is only for cats and dogs, our companion animals. And that tells me that we're seeing a difference between our companion animals and the wild animals that we share this planet with. And I'm not sure exactly why we separate those that way. Because Reiki is for all animals, and it doesn't matter if it's the tiniest, teeniest little bug or insect, an iguana, a cat, a dog, a tiger, or a human, because remember, we're animals too. So Reiki is for all life, and it doesn't matter what form it's in. But I think there's some confusion. Have you had that, Leah, where people just get confused about the difference between domestic and wild animals?
Yeah, in the UK, they're starting a professional animal Reiki business kind of thing, one of the federations there. And they were saying, you have to know the skeletal system, the muscular system, and the disease system of every single species you work with.
Oh.
And that's impossible.
Yeah.
Because thankfully with Reiki, we're just sharing space. We're just holding space, right? Our method, the let animals lead method. So in the let animals lead method, and that's all we can speak to, because other animal Reiki schools may say that there's different hand positions, there's different approaches. But for us, the approach is always the same. It's always bringing ourselves into balance and just holding space. That's it. And usually it's the animals holding space for us. So when we bring ourselves into balance by letting go of anger, letting go of worry, letting go of our ego, becoming grateful, and compassionate. And in that space, all we're doing is just connecting with the animal. And the animal then brings us up. Because once you feel that animal connect, like, I'm going to go be with the tigers. I'm over the moon excited to be with the tigers. Because when you sit with tigers, it is pure love. And when they connect with you, you just go, poof. I mean, it is big.
Yes.
And it's like, but it's the same with, I did Reiki with a spider one time. It was for Kathleen's, one of her classes. It was years ago. And I didn't have an animal. And so there was a daddy long leg up in the corner. And I thought, well, okay, I'll just do Reiki with this thing. So I was, sitting there meditating, and I looked up, and he's still all like, his little legs are crunched up. He's like in that corner. And I'm like, okay. And then all of a sudden, after a few more minutes, I felt just warmth, and I saw just red, just deep, dark scarlet red going down. And I'm like, oh, that's really weird. And so I'm just feeling really relaxed, but warm. And I look up, and the little daddy long leg is hanging by one leg, and his whole body's relaxed. And he just hung there. And so I was like, oh my gosh. So I'm trying not to be like, I got it. So I just go back. I do like 15 more minutes, and then I thank him, and I leave. And he stayed that way for like an hour in just that relaxed, just so I let him live there for, however, until he passed away. Right. But it was crazy how that, that session with him, it was so transformational. And it makes you realize, it's no difference between a tiger. I would have done the same exact thing as with this little spider. Or I know you're out in your garden a lot, right? And when you're doing Reiki, maybe a fly or a bee will just kind of stop and hover, even if it's just for a few minutes, and make that connection, and you can feel it.
Yes. Sometimes it's the bees. Sometimes it's a butterfly shows up. Hummingbirds, they'll come and they just like get up. I've had them get real close and just go up and down and check you out, and then off they go. Because that's a long time for a bird.
For a prey animal.
For a prey animal. And that's another thing you need to consider, if you're working with wild animals. Some of them are prey animals, some of them are predators, and how they respond is going to be different.
Absolutely.
I remember reading an article, and there was a ranger, and I can't remember, I believe it was somewhere in Africa, and he was out with the elephants, and he would take tourists out, but he was a ranger. And at one time he was out and standing there, and one of the elephants, the female, decided, the matriarch started to charge him. And rather than panic, what he did is he told everybody, just be calm. And he stood there, and obviously he was breathing. He went to sort of a meditative state, and she stopped because she picked up on that energy. So it doesn't matter what type of animal. It doesn't matter if you're a bug that, most people scream. I mean, so many people are afraid of spiders, right? And look at that beautiful story that you had with a spider, or snakes, or, cats or dogs or horses or goats or humans. It just doesn't matter.
Or monkeys.
Or monkeys.
Monkeys energy. Well, you know what, and this is what I love about our practice. And again, going back to care. So when you do Reiki with, like, let's say a really grounded animal, like a horse, it's a very grounded energy. But the alligators and the crocodile there, that is really, because when you start to connect, you're really connecting to them where they are, not they're connecting to us where we are. We're going to where they are, which is up here, right? We get to go up and join them up here. And so when you join those alligators, you just feel your whole body start to sink into the ground, so heavy. And you start to go, oh my God, I feel so heavy. And you're like, oh yeah, I'm sharing space with the alligator, right? And they're just so grounded. And so that's a really cool, same with the snakes, they all have different feels. And a spider, even though it's so tiny compared to like a tiger, the experience is still just as powerful and moving.
Yeah, that was a powerful experience you had with that tiny little spider.
Yeah. And I know you've had some experiences with like littler animals too, where
Yeah.
it's really powerful.
Mm-hmm. And ones that you wouldn't necessarily think you were going to have this kind of experience with, that have a bad rep, a bad reputation, and I've had a lot of experiences with the pigs, because I'm on the board to a farm animal sanctuary, Potbelly Pig Sanctuary, and there's lots of animals out there. And there was a funny story. There's also emus out there. And the emus love anything shiny. We always joke that we're going to invite really wealthy women who have big diamonds and let the, emus get them. And then that'll be our fundraiser, because they just go after anything shiny. But so I had a young man sign up for my class with his mother, because she was older. She didn't speak English very well. And really, he just wanted her to learn some new meditations, because she was really interested in that. So it's like, okay, once I figured that out, and we were going through the class, and I don't know that she really grasped a lot of it because of the language barrier, but she was meditating and she was happy. And her son, when I told him we were going to go out to the sanctuary and there was emus, he kept saying, "Oh, Mom, you have to be careful, wear glasses. Those emus will pick your eyes out. They peck your eyes out." And I'm like, they're not going to peck her eyes out. And he was so scared, because he takes care of his mom, you could tell. And so she was nervous. And the funny thing was, and I've usually the emus come up and they peck at you a little bit and then they leave you alone. They're not right up it. Everywhere she went, she had 3 emus. They would be laying at her feet. They would be leaning up against her. And I'm like, she's the emu whisperer, because they just were attracted to her, and they weren't pecking her eyes out. They weren't trying to steal her jewelry, which that surprised me. But they were just attracted to her energy. And I just thought it was so funny, because her son was, had her so scared over these emus that they would peck her eyes out, and you better wear sunglasses. And it's like, it's okay.
And you have to wonder, because they have an understanding that we'll never understand. And if they wanted to show her that it's okay. On a similar story like that happened at CARE, where there was a woman who was deathly afraid of snakes. Like she had been bit by a black moccasin when she was 5, but it bit her boot, and it didn't hit her, but it bit her boot. So for all intents purposes, she got bit. But so she was deathly afraid. Well, there's these little black grass snakes that don't come out. They don't like people. They don't like the public. And she was meditating, and this little black snake came out and was laying next to her. And she saw it and she freaked out, and then it ran away. But Kristen and Travis, who are the founders of CARE, they're like, those snakes don't come out. You never see them. You might see their tail as they whip away, but you never see them out. And it was almost like he was showing, just sharing that space, trying to heal her, like, it's okay. So yeah, really cool. And Darlene, I wanted to comment on hers. My reptile zoo loves Reiki. I know, I love the little reptiles are the best, and the snakes. The snakes are so funny. And I know you've done some with snakes too, Jamie, but how they crawl up like the glass, or they crawl up the wall. It's so cool.
It really is.
Snakes. Yeah.
Yeah. And the animals that aren't the warm, fuzzy ones that everybody loves, everybody loves.
Yeah, like the emus and the snakes. Yeah, those emus scare me. Because I've had an experience with emus where we did Reiki with them. They came to CARE. They were being temporarily held there. And it's the same thing, like they like to peck. Yeah. So to hear that they laid down with that lady and were doing everything they could to be gentle with her, it just makes me feel like there was an understanding there that we just may never know about. We can't relate to.
Exactly, because it's almost like they were just like, they knew she was elderly, and we were watching because we didn't want her to fall or anything, and it's just like they were taking care of her.
Oh, so
And,
beautiful.
and here her son had kind of got her nervous about it. And then she thought it was so funny because I would call her the, emu whisperer, and she liked that. So it's like, yeah, you're the emu whisperer.
I love that too. So, so we've got like 10 minutes left, a little over 10 minutes, 13. So we can talk a little bit more about, animal Reiki versus what we do. Or is there is another question? I think we had a question from last week we didn't get to. I don't know if you want to.
Let's
I
see.
can pull that up too.
Yeah. See if you can pull up the questions.
Yeah.
Because I'd have to do it on my phone here, but yeah, so we appreciate the questions. So please keep sending them in. You can send them in on Animal Bonds or put them in the chat here and we'll check. Well, I should get the chat pulled up, shouldn't I, if I'm going to say that? Yeah. Okay, here we go.
Oh
now
God.
You can put them in the chat and I will check. And full transparency here, I didn't have it up before I told you that.
We could talk about, because we're kind of talking about this now, there's a couple of them. There's healing others versus holding space. If we are really healers, why is there so much pain, suffering, illness in the world? That one, maybe we should save that one because that one's a bigger topic. But yeah. What animals add to your meditation practice? That's a really good one. And then there was another question too, that partnering with animals in meditation. So those are kind of together. So maybe we want to talk about that. What animals add to our meditation practice and how we partner with them and what that looks like and why that's important.
Right. And it is so important. And I think that's what Let Animals Lead teaches us, is how to partner with animals. Because it is a partnership. They are going to, a healthy animal is going to be able to take us to places that we can't go on our own. And Leah has a beautiful flyer. I just love the flyer that you put together. And there is a picture of the Dalai Lama. And then there's a picture of a tiger right beside each other. And what is the question, Leah?
The question is, who would you, so both, all things being equal, the Dalai Lama is a teacher, the tiger is a teacher. Who would you rather meditate with? So we know who we would rather meditate with. And we know who the true master is, because, and you can say that because you were cueing in on that one about the difference between the Dalai Lama and the tiger.
Yes. And so think about that, just ask yourself that, who would you rather meditate with and why?
Jamie, I want you to share what you said about the Dalai Lama being human.
Yes.
And what that means as opposed to the tiger who doesn't have that humanness. And so why the tiger is the better master.
Yes, because the Dalai Lama, and this is nothing against the Dalai Lama. I would love to meet the Dalai Lama and be in his presence, because I know it would be incredible. But he is a human still. He is a spirit, this beautiful energy that's in the human body. And so he has the human condition. And he works very hard, he meditates, but he always has to work to control the ego, just like we do. It's not like, oh, he's attained enlightenment, so now he doesn't have to do anything, because it doesn't work that way. That's why our practice is so important, that we continually do our practice, because we've got these minds, we've got these egos that are always working, and they're always taking us to places. And so it's like we have to calm them, and that takes energy, right? And that's the human condition. And it's nothing wrong with that. It's just, that's a human condition. The tiger, who, is healthy, hasn't been abused, or, maybe he's been abused, but recovered. So the tiger as a teacher is already in that space. So the space we go to when we meditate, where we calm our egos, we calm our minds, that's what the animals live in all the time. That's where the tiger is. So he doesn't have to waste all that energy worrying, trying to control the mind and the ego. And that doesn't mean that they're dumb animals at all. because they do feel, they do think. We see how they reason and, solve problems. I mean, let's face it. If they may appear dumb because they don't respond in our environment, right? But put us out there in the jungle and see how well we would do. We wouldn't know how to survive. Most of us wouldn't, I mean, a horse, you can put them out, they will always find water. I don't want to go out in the desert, which isn't too far away from me, and try to find water because I'm not going to be able to do it, I'm sure.
That is a real thing too, because I used to work in this certain specialized position where I was working with like Navy SEALs and fire jumpers and people who did extreme things. And one of the guys that was a fire jumper, he would do these survival weeks, and where basically they drop you off in the desert, they give you a map and they give you clues to where water might be, but they teach you how to be like animals, right? You find the water, and if there's algae on the water, they teach you how to clear the algae and get below and get the clean water that's underneath the top, and not to drink on the top of the water. And how, all these different animals find these holes just by their senses, yet the humans have to have maps and have to have clues and direction on that, right?
Right. Yeah. What a difference. And so when we look at it that way, who really is the teacher that we would want to be with? For me, definitely the tiger. They're already there.
I'm going to lose power here. I didn't realize this. So I'm going to plug in real fast, guys.
Okay,
sorry about that.
But that is, that's a great thing. And that's why I'm so excited about this weekend when Leah is going to be at the sanctuary for the animals that she's going to get to, partner with through meditation and the lessons that they might share with her. And then we'll get to see some. So that's really exciting.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes, very excited. Sorry, I thought I was on mute. I hope that there wasn't too much noise going on.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
No, so when we bring in our animals, like going back to that question. So the best way that we can do that is that when we go into our own practice, right, when we get ourselves into that space, to then really ask the animals to help support that space, right? And I always do that. And no matter if I'm with a very sick animal, because we make the mistake of thinking, oh, the animal's too weak, because we judge it by our humanness. But really animals, and I say this from experience, even when they are just so sick, if you say, I would love for you to help me hold space, they accept it. They know that you're learning, and they feel important, they feel useful. And we just don't put enough importance on that animals like to feel useful, they like to feel helpful, just like we do, right? We're all givers. We want to be asked to help. We want to help. And so do they. And so I think that it's really important to bring animals into your meditation practice. And I know that in my entrepreneur group, one of the guys, and I think you heard this, Jamie, he said, oh yeah, the cats, they just get in my lap. And I'm like, well, they might get in your lap because you feel really good. And, and he's like, yeah, but I'm trying to meditate. And it's like,
missed the point. Yeah. And that again, that's people wrapped up in their head and their ego and thinking, their mind. Like I'm trying to meditate, so I have to be still. Everything has to be awake. That you have this perception of what meditation should look like. And to him, it doesn't, animals shouldn't be sitting in my lap, for heaven's sakes. But yeah, they should. That's a great sign that you're holding space and meditating, and that they're there to assist you with that and take you to places that are hard to get to on your own.
Absolutely. And I mean, we owe them so much, which is coming back to full circle to our World Animal Reiki Day. That's why we have this day. That's why Kathleen created it, so that we could honor animals for all the gifts that they give us.
Yes. Yes.
And I hope everyone will join us, even if you can't make our live, if you just join us in the day by sitting with your own animals and saying, thank you. Thank you for what you bring. Thank you for being you. And I have to remember that since I'm going to be at care, I won't be with my own animals. I'm going to have to send love and send great gratitude to them.
Yes. And that is a good point. You know, you can join us live, you can watch the replay, you can just sit and, you know, with your animal quietly for a few moments, thinking about how much you love them and what they bring into your life. And, you know, asking them to help you hold space and teach you whatever lessons, you know, that they came to teach you, that you're open to that. And that's a beautiful way to celebrate. And I think if you ask them, they might say a treat would be in order as well on this day. But that's just, you know, I know my guys think a treat is in order for.
Oh my God, I love that so much. We all know if it's a dog or a cat, a treat, it's like even a horse, you know, some carrots. So, you know, and that's so funny. You reminded me, I need to get some treats at the airport for Amos, the monkey, because he's like Kristen's son. He's so adorable. So I have to bring some treats for, you know, to say thank you. It's your day.
Yes.
And it's so cute because I'm going to get some C's candy, and all the animals, you know, they don't get it all the time. And it's just a little bit of chocolate. Kristen will split the candies and give them all a little bit so that they get a special treat. And so it'll be really fun.
That'll be fun.
Obviously, like the little critters won't get chocolate, but like Lola the bear, she can have chocolate, like a little teeny bit. And so can Amos. And it'll be really fun.
That's going to be so fun. I can't wait. I can't wait to see you there.
You guys think daylight is the reason for treat?
That's my French. Yeah, my guys think daylight is the reason for a treat.
Oh my God, that's
so
so funny.
Yes, that's absolutely true.
It's so true. Well, see, and so on Saturday we have to say, okay, finally, it's your day besides your birthday and besides Christmas. And then let's not forget Valentine's Day is coming up too.
That's right. So there's lots of days for treats ahead.
I know. Well, this was so great, Jamie. Thank you so much. And and so on Saturday too, you're going to be leading the Let Animals Lead Animal Reiki Day, World Animal Reiki Day prayer.
Yes.
And so I think that we can probably have that posted on Facebook so people can download that prayer too.
Idea. That's a good idea.
So we'll share it. Yeah.
And then you can have it and you can share along. And if you can't join us, you'll have the prayer. You could read through it with your animals. You know, that's a really good idea. Let's do that. We'll have it up there.
Yeah. And so that's going to be a really great little meditative session when you share that. So I'm excited for that. I know that everybody in class, if they join me on Saturday, because it will be after class, but if we do, we might have a little group of people there to help support that space. So yeah, I'm excited.
That'll be good. That'll be good. This is going to be fun.
All right. Thank you so much, Jamie.
Yes. Thank you, Leah. And thank you, everyone.
Yes. Thank you for coming, Chris and Darlene and Susan. Susan had to bounce, but she was here. And Kathy, thank you so much for the really helpful questions.
Yes.
Really great. Really great. And I can't remember, I feel bad. I can't remember who else submitted the ones from last week. I apologize. It's not that we don't, we just didn't have their names. So sorry. And thank you. And I know that the lineage question, thank you, Darlene, for that, because Darlene has been asking that because it is confusing. We have to acknowledge that it is confusing because in human Reiki, it's so important, right? Yeah. Like people are like, oh, well, I'm only 6, you know, but in animal Reiki, I cannot wait to share that with Kathleen, Dakota, and then us. Yes. Sui, Dakota, and then us. Yes.
We need to put in the book, in the manual.
Yes. No, I think so. That's our tree. I can't wait to share it with her.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. We'll be back Saturday, and then we will be back next Wednesday. So we really appreciate being here. And again, questions, even if you think they're crazy, put them in. We like crazy.
Ask them. We like crazy. Yeah.
We are kind of crazy.
Yeah.
So anyway, on that note, love you.
Bye.
Bye, guys.